Game of the Year must have been very illuminating because Aonuma says, "My eyes have been opened to how important open world is." What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from Switchforce. Gabe is here, and after designing and delivering possibly the best Legend of Zelda of all time, producer Eiji Aonuma talks about how fans love the open world and how he plans to make future games open once again. He says, I can't speak to what other companies will do in their games, but I think for me, especially just in terms of the Zelda series, the incredible freedom that this game offers you and how well that's been received, to me it means that freedom, that level of freedom, is something that needs to be maintained in Zelda games going forward. My eyes have been opened to how important that is. And while we know that the Breath of the Wild DLC is done, I'm sure that the initial, at least, brainstorming sessions for the next Legend of Zelda have begun, and it looks like open world will be the foundation for whatever game takes shape.
That worries me a little bit, Zach. I don't know how I feel. All right, I love Zelda tattoo on my arm. I've mentioned that before. But and maybe this is just me being stuck in my ways, but I was kind of hoping that the next Zelda went a little bit more traditional. I miss the dungeons. I miss the certain weapons are going to be what gets you through the dungeon. I don't know. There's something about that formula that has worked for so long that I really enjoy. I do understand that maybe that formula or that well seems to have run dry a little bit. And now that, they discovered this huge open environment and they enjoyed it, I'm sure that they're going to structurally do things different. I don't think the next game is just hey, hundreds of shrines again. And yeah, you have 3 or 4 dungeons. I don't think they do that, hopefully. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. What are you going to put in this world to make it feel different than Breath of the Wild? And, the other concern I have is art style wise. Do you stay similar to Breath of the Wild for the next game? Can you still do something really cool like Wind Waker and make it huge and open and detailed like this? So a lot of little things just come to mind that make me say no, Aonuma, don't do this. But again, they're geniuses over there. They know what they're doing with the series. I have full faith in them. It just makes me a little bit worried that they want to go open.
Yeah, I think, we discussed this back in the initial demos and videos of Breath of the Wild, that once they go this route, it's a little difficult to immediately walk it back, right? If the next Zelda game is very tried, true, traditional, linear, I think that feels incredibly regressive to fans, and especially new Zelda fans. I don't know how you make that step when traditionally sequels and series are supposed to evolve. And we talked about how this was kind of a slippery slope, and I don't think that you can't go back and deliver a fantastic linear Zelda, but you'd have to do things differently. Clearly, given the success of Breath of the Wild, given the critical acclaim of Breath of the Wild, I think they'd be foolish not to do open world, at least once more. Why would you abandon something that, one, you established all the systems for and put all the time and effort, this had a sizable development cycle, all the time and effort into the physics, into the world, into the seamless nature, into all the different side activities. It would seem slightly silly to just toss that and start brand new. I don't know, though, Gabe, that they're going to do something totally different. I could very much see a similar type game that just involves a new environment. If I think of, a lot of the handheld games, and DS ones not included because Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass were very unique. You look at Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, Link to the Past, these games in general have a lot in common. And even to a degree, Ocarina, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, are they really that different? And I don't know that you need to drastically mix it up. I could see the next Zelda being far more of a sequel than a brand new entry in the series.
And I guess that's what I was thinking about. We've never really had this, but, a Breath of the Wild 2. Yes, we had Ocarina and Majora's Mask, which, that's basically a sequel. But, there's no number behind it. So other than the Legend of Zelda 2, back in the day, that's not something we really have in the series. And I guess that would be interesting, right? How do you just follow something like this up? You just make it bigger, better, different. I don't know. I don't know how much different you make it. Because Hyrule's Hyrule, right. I suppose, unless you do something insane and just, you're not in Hyrule. But I guess that's a discussion for another time. I don't know. And I do wonder, like, if I'm one of the people that is just so stuck in the old ways that is like you said, how do you just like walk back from it? Because it feels like a regression if you do go back to something more linear. And I understand that. So I wonder if the popular opinion is, yes, like open, we love this. Breath of the Wild is fantastic. It is. I'm not disagreeing. I love Breath of the Wild. But I feel like maybe people might tend to agree with you instead of with me. And I accept that, and I realize that. It's just, I like that style of game so much. And I guess my hope then becomes, sure, next Zelda make it open as well, but give us a smaller Zelda that isn't open, at least.
Right. Well, and I think you could go far more cinematic and deliver something that was linear. I just think you can't, given the freedom and how much player choice and control was going on, I don't know that you can go back to the, hey, we're going to have a 2-hour intro section and we're going to slowly, unlock your powers and slowly walk you through. I mean, think about how everything was sort of given to you at the beginning and then go. And I don't know that, I think you'd have some bitterness if all of a sudden it was back to the way it was. But I think you could take the conceptual foundation of Breath of the Wild and apply that more to a linear style. Just not sure how that pans out, especially given the fact that Aonuma is saying, hey, I now am a fan of open world. And again, I'm very curious to hear you guys' take in the comments down below, but this is something that we did slightly worry about, was what is the slippery slope? And I think it applies also to Mario, to an extent. Like, what can you, maybe Mario is different because it's a platformer. The side-scrolling nature is, or sort of the more level-contained nature is more expected and more just kind of like a part and parcel with that kind of genre, that kind of game. Zelda seems like more of an evolution, and I don't know how you do stuff like that. But let us know how you feel. I mean, to me, it's kind of exciting, given the fact that this was so awesome and it was their first attempt. Does a second attempt, not guarantee, but deliver something better? How many sequels, are able to expand upon interesting concepts, especially concepts that are executed for the first time? I look back at some franchises like Assassin's Creed, and obviously, the Zelda team is far more experienced than the AC team did at the time. But they were able to build upon their ideas tremendously in the second. And what if Breath of the Wild is really just the beginning for open world Zelda? What if this is sort of a new start that then they're able to evolve throughout a number of games to a point that, like, hey, remember where the traditional linear Zeldas went over time? I think they, got more complicated, got in some cases better. I don't know. I could talk for ages on this. To me, Zelda's an interesting series because I feel like it's one that doesn't follow the traditional game series path. Like, sometimes it feels like it goes forward, sometimes it feels like it goes back. Some of the mechanics from the early days are beloved. I mean, Link to the Past is the most beloved, and
rightfully so.
It's simplistic in comparison to something like Skyward Sword, but there's
I suppose where my worry comes in is, I don't want Nintendo to just start doing what everybody else does. Open world games, at least in the year 2018, are a dime a dozen. Like, everything is open world now. And I wonder how much of what works in other games Nintendo adopts and like tries to make better. But at some point, if you keep doing what you are doing, this sounds silly. Like, it stops being a Zelda game. Like, if I want to play Assassin's Creed, I'll go play Assassin's Creed.
But don't you think I'm just afraid. Breath of the Wild was very Zelda? And if you look at the other open world games that came out in the last 2 to 3 years, I still feel like this one is incredibly unique. And I'm sure that games will take from it, but I feel like it took that formula and still Nintendo-ified, Zelda-ified.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, he says that, Aonuma says that it needs to be maintained going forward. So I'm not even necessarily worried about the next game. And again, complete faith in them. It's just 2 games from now, 3 games from now. Like, how much of what is popular are you just adopting? Open world, like I said, dime a dozen at this point. And I kind of like that in the past, Zelda gave me something different. Like,
I think if they're able to add back some linear elements. I think, like, for example, the next Zelda needs to have stronger dungeons, regardless of if it's open or linear.
Yeah.
But if you are able to do that and have more defined areas, all of a sudden you get almost a 3D original Legend of Zelda or a 3D Link to the Past, where it is more player choice, more open, more able to sort of go and explore, yet still delivering the set pieces and the linearity of dungeons that you've come to love. So maybe there is a happy middle ground that can be achieved. I think that's a perfect scenario. To me, the fun of the open world is more on the mechanics of it. So if you keep the mechanics of, hey, you can climb and you can run and you can glide and do all that, you could certainly incorporate more linear elements. So there is a chance for it to give you that tried and true Zelda feel while still having this overarching structure of, hey, climb, run, jump, ride, wherever you want.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, they're gonna do a good job because they don't let us down too often when it comes to Zelda. Yes, there are Zelda games that people don't like as much, but I don't think like anybody just blatantly thinks any of them are like terrible or anything like that. It's still a very beloved series. It's had a very important series to them because, you know, with this one, it sold super well. And not that Zelda doesn't sell well, it always does. But this one especially made a huge splash, and I'm just excited to see what they do going forward.
Absolutely. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on that. You guys let us know what you think, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest from the Switch and from Team Zelda. Aonuma, a genius over there, and he is now on that open world kick. So we'll see where that takes us. Until that time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. And for myself and Gabe, Switch Force out.